Casey Mushrush, Donna has a question for you. She says, I'm 64, recently retired. My grandchildren live a few states away, and I'd love to spend more time with them by taking them, by having a place nearby. I'm torn between buying a second home, which would mean taking on a new mortgage, or just renting something when I'm there. What's the better option for someone in my stage of life?
Yeah, Donna, this is an absolutely, truly noble purpose. Getting closer to family, seeing people on a more regular basis, that is something that oftentimes we will talk with clients, and that is a major part of their retirement strategy is being closer to family, being able to help out with those grandkids and being able to support the kids as well. One thing that I want you to think about is how does a second property fit your existing cash flow, your risk capacity, and your retirement goals? Now, when we think about these different things, really you're looking at a couple of different options if you're looking for that second property. You kind of talked about this a little bit, but one of the most simple things is just paying for it outright. Simply putting money down, purchasing the property, then you own it. However, that can reduce the liquidity. It does tie up cash over in that property. Now, maybe you still have access through it, but it's through like a home equity line of credit or something of that nature, meaning that you do have a cost if you were to go try and create additional liquidity from that asset. You can also take out a mortgage. So it does preserve the overall cash, so you still have that in your pocket. However, there is that cost that comes along with it in terms of the interest rate, and then you also have that debt risk from that mortgage that exists as well. And really that third area or third option would be renting, which can keep a lot of flexibility in your situation, and you don't have really that long-term commitment, but it might be a more expensive option compared to the other two because you are paying for the cost of whatever it is to own that home, plus the additional profit margin for the landlord. Now, Donna, you really didn't mention paying outright inside of your question here, which that could actually mean that if you do not have that available as assets, this may actually be a very, very bad idea for you, because this does introduce a lot of risk into your portfolio. Anytime we are increasing debt, moving into retirement, it's increasing the amount of risk that we are actually bringing into our financial situation. So it is possible that while maybe you have some assets or maybe you could afford monthly payments, you can't afford to actually do the purchase of the piece of property itself. So really the next question after that is, how does the property affect your day-to-day retirement expenses as far as your income and then also the outflows on that side? So if you are on a fixed or a semi-fixed retirement income, which most retirees are, you want to make sure that you understand how that's impacted. Roger just mentioned here front loading some of those retirement expenses, and you want to make sure that this could be something that would be coming over in here, and now you're overloading the front end of those retirement expenses, and you would be too lopsided on that side in terms of that additional cash flow coming in.
Casey, I'm going to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
That right there would be a want or a wish.
Exactly.
So if someone's organizing, you'd have needs. I need to have food, shelter, etc. I want to travel. I wish I could have a house.
Right.
This is the perfect example of why we break out those expenses.
Yes.
Like that.
Well, and it's almost like these things aren't done in isolation, right? Because all of this is called a continuum, all these different pieces really feed over into each other. So while this might be something that would be really nice, it may not be a necessary expense. Now, one other thing that she didn't mention, it is possible you could move. Change the location of your primary home, maybe taking equity from that existing place that you're in right now and moving closer over to the grandkids. I'm assuming there's some reason that Donna's looking at maybe a second home. Maybe she doesn't want to be there all the time, but that is maybe another option in there as well.
People like the idea of a second home.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can tell you there's good things and there's bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Most people aren't looking at the negatives of the second home, which is time, energy, effort. It's not, you have a second property to take care of. It is a lot of work.
Who's there to take care of it when you're not there? What happens if something goes wrong while you're gone?
And if you're not there, you will be paying somebody else. Either you're going to hire a service or you're going to have an HOA fee. It's a whole nother layer of expenses. And I think to Casey's original point, at 64, if you can't pay cash, it's likely not for you.
Yeah. The other thing too is something else is you may want to extend this a little bit, but this whole idea of she doesn't know what she's getting into if she just steps into it and says, I'm going whole hog and buys in, but then a year later she's like, you know what, maybe I should have done this. Maybe you need to take it for a test drive.
And the answer to that might be exactly that, doing the test drive strategy that you're using, right? So understanding, and one thing that I would ask you, Donna, is how much time are you actually going to spend there? Because if the answer to that is it's just going to be a month out of the year, does it really make sense to go purchase a second home if you're only going to be using it a 12th of the time that you're going to be spending your time on that? Again, the upkeep and maintenance in another state, if we're going across state lines, can be pretty significant. There's another complication that we didn't even address on here, and that is the complication to your estate plan. Now, again, this gets over if we're owning property in multiple different states, that typically will dictate a different estate planning structure, right? I have a much more compelling reason to be utilizing a trust-based estate plan rather than a simple will-based estate plan if we have property in multiple different locations that we are now going to have to open up probate with. So one thing, that I would mention on here as well, and just let me tell you a real quick story. I actually had a client that considered something like this. And they were looking at purchasing, it was about a $175,000 home, and it was across state lines. And one of the things that we did is we sat down and looked at it and said, what is the equivalent if you were to jump over onto Airbnb and rent by the week? And it was about $2,000 a week approximately that they could go get a similar, same number of bedrooms, bathrooms, pretty decent place, and still have kind of their own little landing pad at that point in time. So really what that translated for them was about 87 and a half weeks of living that was available to them without actually making the lump sum commitment and not having any of the additional taxes or any of the additional upkeep or any of the additional anything that comes with owning that second property. Now, we've also had situations on this where we've seen this not work out. These don't always have happy endings. And we actually had another client at one point in time that they came to us and said, I want to go buy the second home. We ran it into the financial plan. Roger, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And it took their probability of success from a 92 to a 72. It was a significant swing to the downside.
It wasn't a no.
It wasn't no.
I mean,
it was
72 is like borderline.
This is really probably not a good idea. This actually has a very significant detrimental impact on your likelihood of being able to maintain your spending. Guess what happened 3 years after they did this? They sold the property.
Oh, geez.
Because it no longer was feasible. It was no longer sustainable. Basically, they rushed over into the thing, and just a couple of years later, they said, nope, we're out. And they ended up actually liquidating out of that piece of property.
Everybody underestimates the extra cost. Everybody. They look at the purchase price of $175,000, pull out of their portfolio. Yep, I can do that. They forgot about the other $1,000 a month it's going to cost a minimum to have taxes, insurance. I have multiple clients who moved to other states. In every situation, they are spending significantly more than they ever thought they were going to. And their exact words to me, I didn't know it was going to be this much extra to have a second home.
This is why Premier Investments in Wealth Management can take the hundreds of clients that they have from across the country and bring the life experiences into you as well at premieriwm.com. Just go to premieriwm.com and you can make an appointment with any one of the folks that you see, one of the guys here at the table with me and somebody else if you'd like to, or call 800-383-6590. Premier Investments in Wealth Management, named to Forbes 2025 Best in State Wealth Management Teams.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs, and does not assure a profit or protect against loss. Premier Investments in Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide specific individualized tax or legal advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific situation with a qualified tax or legal advisor. Forbes' Best in State Wealth Management Team's ranking was developed by Shook Research and is based on in-person, virtual, and telephone due diligence meetings and a ranking algorithm that includes a measure of each team's best practices, client retention, industry experience, review of compliance records, firm nominations, and quantitative criteria, including assets under management and revenue generated for their firms. Investment performance is not a criterion because client objectives and risk tolerances vary, and advisors rarely have audited performance reports. Shook's research and rankings provide opinions intended to help investors choose the right financial advisor and team, and are not indicative of future performance or representative of any one client's experience. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Neither Forbes nor Shook Research receive compensation in exchange for placement on the ranking. For more information, please see www.shookresearch.com. Shook is a registered trademark of Shook Research, LLC.